Good morning, everyone. Hope everybody had a safe and happy holiday. I know we had a little get together with our families, so it was a great time. Hope everybody was safe and no major instances. A little bit of fireworks, you can always have a little time to wonder if everything went off right. Pardon me, I'm still drinking my first cup of coffee this morning. So today we're going to talk about the Samsung RF18A refrigerator. So as we move along, guys, the one thing that I always preach is number one is safety for you, for the customer. You have to be conscious, and you have to constantly be thinking about safety, what you're doing in the customer's home. How can I not damage anything in the customer's home? These are actual pictures that I had taken. So this is like I said, this is problems that you don't need because these are flooring issues. Okay, the one on the right is the one on the far right is a water issue. If you have a water issue, everybody knows the problems that can cause if it gets into the wood that's in the cabinets on the sides of this. The one on the right is not a picture that I took. The other two are. Okay. These are actually the one on the left, the far left, is actually in front of a stove. The one in the center was from a refrigerator. Although it doesn't look like much, it cost a whole bunch of money to have that fixed. Because the customer said, "Oh, I can't get that fixed. It'll look bad." And so ended up having a floor issue. So and had to turn it over into the insurance company. But that was all because the technician wasn't thinking whenever he went out there. Okay, some of the things you're not going to be able to fix, but let's fix the ones that we can fix. Okay, if I'm going to pull a refrigerator out, if I'm going to pull a range out, if I'm going to pull a product forward, whenever it's been sitting for a while, we all know that if it's been sitting there for 3 or 4 or 5 years and never been moved, and especially if it's a refrigerator, we have a problem because you have to dust the coils on the refrigerator. Most of the time, you need to pull it out. But these are items right here that you can use to protect the floor. I have used all three of these items. My preference is the one on the far right, of course. That one is much more expensive. They are coming down. Whenever I was a technician, they were about $1,200 for that, and it really is the best thing that you can have. Okay. So what happens is I turn the unit on, the airbags inflate. It will raise the refrigerator up. I can just pick when it picks the refrigerator up, I can move it as I want to do it. The one that I had doesn't show it in the one on the right hand side, but there was a strap, and you literally put the strap over my shoulder, and I could move that refrigerator any way I wanted to move it. It worked great, not just for refrigerators. Whenever you have a washing machine that's full of water and I need to move it around a little bit so I can get behind it or do something else, I can do that with this tool. So while the other two are great, this one actually you can buy it from Encompass. They're selling them now. Reggie has a new slide like this one, and it's on display at Encompass. The other two are just sheets of plastic. Um, the one thing about the one that's on the far left, that doesn't really roll up. You have to keep it into a sheet. You have to make sure that you dust it off whenever you're putting it in the house. You can still scratch the floor if it's just dirty and nasty, and I slide it up under, I can still scratch the floor. The other one on the right there in the center, that has the refrigerator on it. Those actually roll up. I can keep those in my truck, and they literally I can roll them up. There's as you can see, the one on the right, it looks like it rolls up on this one. On the left. I'll learn my left from my right one of these days. But all of these products are available, but please use these. The other thing that I tell everybody, okay, we're gonna get to everything else, but whenever I'm a technician, one of the things you want to do is you want to have your technicians, if they notice anything going into the home, please make sure that they write it down, point it out to the customer. And when I say write it down, I mean put it on the ticket so that you as a manager know what's going on. Because if I don't know that information, and the technician goes and the customer calls and screams and hollers, and you got no leg to stand on. So I used to have my technicians, if they noticed anything, a scratch on the floor, if they noticed a countertop that was scratched, if they saw something that might lead to a problem, they pointed it out to the customer. They took a picture of it with their phone, took a picture of the ticket, and then they kept that for at least a month, so that we had verification that we could talk to the customer in an intelligent manner and have a conversation. Say, well, ma'am, you signed the ticket. Number one, I see here that you signed the ticket on this unit, and there was notation of the damage, and you signed it saying that you knew it was there before he got there. So just always cover yourself as a business owner. Okay. As a technician, you want to make sure that you give your boss something to stand on, so that you have pictures of the product. If you see anything, scratches on the walls. I had one that a customer tried to tell me was what the technician had damaged the wall, because whenever he had to pull the refrigerator out, he had marred up the wall, and you could tell by the dent that was there in the sheetrock that he didn't do that. But he didn't. I had nothing to be able to prove to him, the customer, that was there. There's no indication of it on the work order that they signed. I can't help. All right. So, that's something that you have to sit down and talk with your boss about, and that's not a good conversation to have. Okay. I'm going to jump off of that soapbox, and we're going to jump to another. Okay. So let's talk about refrigeration. This is the month of refrigeration. All of May, June, and July, we're talking about refrigeration. Okay. We're talking about everything from refrigerators to ice makers to commercial ice makers. That's all on this month's the next 70 days about. So you're gonna have to pardon me. There's a couple of flies running around the house here. Whenever I had people over, they didn't close the doors all the way, and we got a couple of flies running around still that I got to get rid of. So you'll have to pardon me. You'll see me swat every once in a while. But anyway, let's get back to what we were at. So the heart of the refrigerator. What is just like the heart in your body? Okay, the heart of the refrigerator is the compressor. Okay, what does the compressor do? The compressor doesn't really do but one thing, and its one job is to circulate refrigerant. Okay, the way that the refrigerator is designed, that's the way that the heart works. You know, as the suction line comes in, it's the refrigerator has a piston in it. Okay, it pulls it in as that piston goes in, just like the valves in your heart. Okay, one valve will open, another valve will close. It pushes it through the compressor, and it pushes it out the discharge line. So let's follow this. Okay, excuse me. The suction line is where we suck it in. Okay, so as it comes in, it goes around just like this picture shows. If you notice that there's a suction valve, that suction valve opens whenever that piston is pulling it in. It will close as that piston reaches the full length like that. It will close the suction valve. The discharge valve will open, and it pushes the refrigerant out from the discharge valve. I will be very honest with you. These new R600 refrigerant, in the oil itself, it can contain up to about 30% of the refrigerant being in the oil. Okay, what does that mean? This refrigerant is basically it's very highly flammable. Okay, if I'm being lackadaisical with it, let's say I decide that I want to use a torch instead of using a lock ring tool or something like that. Can you use a torch? Yeah. So sooner or later, you're going to end up have a catastrophe. It's just a matter of time. Guys are saying, "Oh, it's no big deal. I just fire my torch up." Well, I'm telling you, sooner or later, you're going to have a problem. Okay, I guarantee you. So, if you don't believe in the flammability of this, I want you to go out to YouTube and type in R600 GE test. Okay, there is a video out that GE did on one of the engineers did it, and the refrigerator actually explodes. Okay, don't be playing around with this. Nobody needs to get hurt. Like I said, I am 100% about safety. Use a different method than a torch, or sooner or later you're going to have problems. You're going to end up you can scorch a customer's home. The other thing is our R600 is very flammable, so it's not just you can vent this. Okay, I can vent this into the customers into outside. It's not required that I recover it. It's R600. Not at this point. I'm sure that will change sooner or later, but right now I can vent R600 into the air. Okay, so let's be careful whenever we're out there, and we're not gonna. I don't want anybody to have any problems, and I don't want to hear of anybody getting burned, because if you go to the lock ring site on excuse me, if you go to the lock ring site on Facebook, they have a lock ring site on Facebook. You're going to see some people that have gotten burned, and that's because of they handled it improperly. Okay. So getting back to the compressor, okay. Before I diagnose the compressor, I need to know that it's actually the compressor. Okay. That's one of the things that we got to make sure of before we do anything else, is that we're actually diagnosing it properly. You know, there are so many ways right now that I can check this compressor and make sure that it's compressor. One of the things that I can do is I can listen. Okay. If I hear a pop, not really a pop, but if I hear a click, click, I know that the overload is tripping. Okay. So I may want to go back and I may want to check the overload. Could be the overload's weak. Why could it be weak? Well, let's say that the customer is this customer that hasn't pulled his refrigerator out in 5 years, and now the coils are just totally, because they've got a cat and a dog at the house, and those cats and dogs love to lay in front of the refrigerator because that warm air, and then it sucks the air into the other side. We got a big problem. The compressor's overworking, and you'll actually cause issues with the compressor. Can actually get shorted out because it can't breathe, and it's just like your lungs, So if I'm thinking and if I hear the click, I'm going to have to get back to the compressor. I'm going to have to pull the refrigerator out. I'm going to put down all of my flooring protectors. I'm going to start. I'm going to pull it out. Once I get it pulled out, I'm going to take off the 450,000 screws that are around the outside of it. I've yet to figure out why in the world they couldn't. Although they're getting a whole lot better than they were. I mean, it used to be cardboard, and that's the reason they had 450 screws. At least now there's only about 8 or 9 screws, and it's metal on some manufacturers' backs, the back of the refrigerator. So that means that you don't have to take out all of those screws, but I still have to remove those. I'm going to look down on the bottom wherever the compressor is. I'm going to look for this little box that I see right here. Okay. I'm going to unplug the refrigerator. Once I unplug the refrigerator, I can then start diagnosing all the product problems from right there, making sure that I actually had a compressor issue. If I'm here, like I said, I've heard that click, and I'm going to have to get over there and find out why the overload is going off. Okay, so I'm going to check it. I'm going to see how many amps it's pulling. If I'm pulling a whole lot of amps, I know that I may have a start problem, or I may have a run problem. So I'm going to have to go, and I'm going to have to diagnose the exact issues of what is going on. Now, if I'm pulling it, if I'm removing the refrigerator from the hole, and I see all this dirt and cat hair and everything else, I know that I'm going to have a problem. So I'm going to have to go ahead, and I'm going to have to go and clean the condensing coils, because if I don't clean the condensing coils, I'm not doing anything but causing more problems. I mean, it's just like whenever I have asthma, whenever I start to get an asthma attack, I have to have an inhaler. So I'm cleaning my lungs with my inhaler, because I make my lungs so that I can breathe again. Same thing here. Okay. So what are the components that are inside the box? Okay. That I just described in the other picture. There are 2 different kind of components that are here. Okay. One is the old style, which is on the right side on the overload. And then the other side, the left side, is a solid state overload. Okay. I'm gonna need both of those. With this, the relay that's on the right is one of the new relays. Okay. So with that one on the right, I would have the overload that's on the left. The other overload, the other relay, I can actually check. This one, all I can do is do an ohms check. I can't shake this around, and I can't move it like I can with one of the other PTC on. Okay. So what I'm going to do here, right? This shows me exactly where every plate thing goes. Okay. If I have a run capacitor, it's going to be hooked to these 2 wires right here. If you have any experience with any kind of outside air conditioning unit, a lot of the times they'll have a capacitor on there that's wired so that it helps the compressor with both the start and the run. Okay, but here's where my wires are going to be. If you notice, I have an overload wire that's connected, which will be the neutral. I'm going to have the hot wire is going to be right there going to the relay. Okay, that's 120 volts. We all know that. So, how do I check my relay? I was telling you about a different relay. There's your electrical, mechanical relay right there on the bottom. If you look, the PTC relay, all I can do, like I said, is go between terminals 2 and 3. Okay, that's all I can do. That's all. It doesn't really tell me. It tells me good or bad. That's all it does. With electrical mechanical relay, there's a little coil that moves the relay from start to run. This is how you check this electromechanical relay. Okay, with a relay in any position, check and see if there's any continuity between terminals 1 and 2. Okay, if there's not, change the relay. With a relay in the vertical position, if it's sitting straight up, okay, the coil of the relay is at the top. Okay, I'm going to check between terminals 1 and 3 of the relay. Okay, if I've got no continuity between those two, I throw it away and put a new one in. But I'm also going to do a couple of other things. Okay, number 2, with the relay in the vertical position, and this time the coil is pointed downwards. If there's continuity between terminals 1 and 3, if there is, I'm going to change the relay. My relay's bad. Okay, so all I'm doing is checking those 2 terminals, and whenever you can actually on this electrical mechanical relay, you can actually feel it. One of the guys that trained me would actually take it and shake it in his ear to hear if it moved. That's all you're doing, is because what happens is when that coil is energized, it pulls that little tab up. Sometimes it doesn't energize properly. Okay, so this is actually the wiring schematic for a compressor. Okay, we don't have a start capacitor. Okay, we have the run windings. We have a run portion of the winding. We have a start portion of the winding, and then we have the relay coil. Okay, so what happens is the overload intersects to keep the compressor from going bad so quickly. You're going to find more overloads that are bad than start relays that are bad. Okay, that's whenever you're going to find something that's just got, cat hair everywhere, dog hair everywhere. Could be a plastic bag that's gotten up under there and somehow gotten sucked under. But that's what I'm going to go through. So if I'm going to look at my line voltage, okay, this is actually a 220, volts instead of 110. So this one actually is for a compressor outside in outside. This is a 240 volt system, not a 110 volt. Okay, but you're going to have line voltage, and then you're going to have L1 is going to be the neutral, and then L2 is your actual line voltage. So you're going to go through the overload. There's my line voltage. Is going to go to the start windings. It's going to go through, and that's what that the capacitor, the little start capacitor thing does. So that's going to be that's what's going to happen. So I'll go between the overload, where the overload plugs in, to the start and then to the run. So I'm going to check those two in between those 3 points, and I can tell if my compressor is bad. Okay. If I have just a regular compressor, if I go between the C and the R, if you look on the bottom, on the right-hand side on the bottom, it's easier to see. You see the C is the common. They have inverted it. So the common is there. There's a start and then the run. So if I go between C and S, I should get between 3 and 11 ohms. If I go between the C and the R, I should get between 1 and 5 ohms. All the compressor and the pin to ground, infinite resistance are open. Okay. If you have an inverter compressor, I'm going to get between 6.2 to 11 ohms between any two pins. Okay. This is an inverter compressor. So we've gone through the compressor section of the unit. Now we're going to talk about the evaporator section. Okay. So if I'm going to get to the evaporator on this unit, okay, I'm going to have to remove the bottom. I'm going to have to remove the top drawer, the other one. Okay. After I do that, I'm going to have to remove the screws. This one is a so it uses a 9 or 10 millimeter, and I can take those off, and then I can get to the front. Okay, you can see it right here. I can now pull this out and slide it out. Okay, this gives me access to the evaporator in the back. Got 2 points that I'm going to remove that are 2 screws that I have to use a screwdriver for, or you have to have a really long bit that you don't have a lot of things in the, like can't use a multi-bit for this. You need a regular screwdriver. On these, I would tell you to please do not use a drill, because you're screwing into plastic. So you want to make sure that you're not damaging the plastic. Okay. Once I remove that, if you look right there on the right side, you can see the evaporator fan motor on the side. And then as you can look at this one, you can tell that this one really doesn't look like I have a huge problem, does it? I've got no buildup in the pan on the bottom for my heater. I don't have my frost pattern seems to be pretty even. I would be wondering why I even pulled this out, except to check and make sure that the fan motor was running. Okay, but that's me. That's something that you're going to you can check. Okay, it's a lot to do to go in and check this. So you want to make sure that, the first thing I'm going to do before I do anything, I'm going to check and see what the temperature is before I go through all of this right here. I'm going to see what the temperature in the refrigerator, in the freezer is. If something happens and the refrigerator and the freezer's not cold, that's whenever I'm going to start taking. I'm going to start taking this unit apart and figuring out where my problem is. Okay, so this here is the freezer section of the unit. Like I said, I'm gonna remove this. Whenever I remove it, if you look over on the right side at the top, there's several plugs. I can pull the plug, and I can actually move this out of my way and get this so that I can actually get on the inside and work. So right there, I've removed that. I can now check it, and I can check to see if I've got a 12-volt DC at the plug outlet. You can tell that there's only two places right there. So I'm going to check that. Okay, here it is right here. With the rails pushed in, the fan and the freezer should run. What happens if it doesn't? What happens if you pull the rails out? So on this model itself, okay, if I don't have the freezer section with the rails pushed in, the fan will not run. Okay. It will not run unless the rails are pushed in. There's a switch in the back, and that controls the fan. So that's the other thing you have to check is if that fan, if you're thinking that fan switch is bad, you're gonna have to pull you can pull the railing out on the right side, okay, and then you can push it back in, and that will actually tell you if that switch is actually working properly. Okay, that could be that could have been your problem. Okay, but if I don't get my power to the fan itself, if I got power to the fan and it's still not running, well, of course we know that now we got a problem with the fan. Okay, so not cooling. I kind of went down and tried to figure out what were some of the common issues for not cooling. Okay, one of the things that I always checked whenever I was a technician, I'm going to check my condenser fan coils. Okay, I want to make sure that they are clear and that I can get the heat dispensed properly so that the compressor works properly. Okay. The evaporator fan motor, is that working properly? Once again, we talked about the on and off switch. We want to make sure that that's on. Okay. The temperature control thermostat. Okay. So depending on what kind of unit you have, with this one here, it's on the back and it's a board. So I've got to know that I've got to go through and check my boards to make sure that those are working properly. Okay. The main control board, is it defective? Okay. The thermistor could be faulty. Okay. I could have a faulty thermistor. This unit has 4 thermistors in it. Okay. So I'm going to have to go and I'm going to have to check each one of the thermistors. Okay. The compressor, is the compressor working properly? You know, that's what we just went through in the very beginning, was how to check the compressor. Okay. If I have a problem with the compressor, then I may have to actually, I could have a bad compressor. That, just like everything else, some of them, they go bad. Okay. The start relay might be defective. The start capacity may have failed. Okay. The condenser fan motor could be bad. And everybody knows the condenser fan motor is the one that sits right next to the compressor. Okay. Could have something in it. Could have an obstruction. It's not letting it circulate the fan. It will actually cause if you have a bad condenser fan motor, you can actually cause the compressor to short cycle, which would be a problem. And once again, that's the listening portion of it. Okay. You get a lot of times you can hear things. Okay. And once you get to be a technician and you have a lot of experience, that's the first thing that you always do, is you walk in and just listen. Okay. The temperature control thermostat could be bad. Okay. The temperature control board could be defective. These are the main reasons that I could have issues. So those are the ones that I'm going to have to go through. Okay. One of the other things that you get a lot of complaints on, especially on this unit, is that there's no ice in the bucket. We as a nation are the highest consumer of ice than any other nation in the world. That's just a fun tidbit to know. Okay, it's the reason if you go to, no, everybody always, the jokes is don't drink the water in Mexico. Well, I can tell you for a fact, from experience, don't eat the ice in Mexico either. Okay. So I have no ice in the bucket. I'm going to do a couple of quick checks that I can do rapidly. Okay. Is the temperature in the freezer above 10 degrees? If it's above 10 degrees, not going to make ice. Okay. The water inlet valve, is it working? Do I hear it? Do I hear a buzzing? Do I hear anything? Once again, it's the listening portion of it. Okay. I'm going to check and make sure that the water inlet valve is not faulty. I'm going to check the ice maker assembly to make sure that it's not faulty. The ice maker module could be defective. I could have low pressure from the house. Normally, what happens with low pressure is one of two things: the valve will stick open, or the valve will never close. It will never close all the way, and you will get water that drips through and freezes, or you got such low water pressure you can't get it to cycle at all. Okay. The door switch may have failed. Okay. The ice level control board might fail. On the new ones today, that's what it would be. On the old ones, it could be the bin, the little arm that goes up. Okay. That could be defective. Okay. On one of the older models, the ice maker mold thermostat could be defective. Okay. Once again, on one of the new ones that has a flex tray, we don't have to worry about that. There is no mold thermostat. Okay. The ice maker switch could be defective. That's the on-off switch that you have on the side of the unit. That could be defective. The other thing is that it could be clogged because the customer has not cleaned, has not changed their filter. So those are all things that you want to definitely check before you start moving along and looking for something else. Okay. So here's the mode button that I was talking about. There's the test button on the bottom. Okay. This ice maker itself produces 8 cubes. Okay. 8 cubes per cycle. Okay. That's all it'll do is 8 cubes per cycle. It only produces somewhere between 100 and 130 cubes in a 24-hour period. That is dependent upon the ice maker freezer temperature. Okay. Whenever I get a brand new ice maker, the first thing that you have to do is you have to throw away the first few batches of ice. Okay. Be sure that whenever I'm testing this, I mash the test cycle button. I'm going to make sure that I have no obstructions whenever this thing cycles. Okay. After the ice maker has been turned on, there's a time delay that the ice maker will resume operation. So if I have to replace this ice maker, you have to know that once it cycles, it's got to cool back down for it to reset everything. Okay. So there will be a delay in the ice making of the unit. You need to tell the customer that so that they're aware of it, and they don't call you back because, hey, it's not making ice like it's supposed to. Okay. If ice is not used frequently, old ice cubes will become cloudy. Okay. That's one of the things, even new ice machines, brand new ice machines, you may get cloudy ice. That has a whole lot to do with so many other components. This is not a clear ice system. If the customer wants a clear ice system, they need to go buy a commercial ice maker. That's the only way you're going to get clear ice. Even the nugget ice that you get from there's several places around that have it now. I know that the Circle K up by the house does, and then there's the little restaurant down there that has the chili dogs. They have the nugget ice. That's not a clear ice. Okay. The customer should know that this is not a clear ice system. Okay. So when ice making function is selected, ice making is the priority. Okay. When the temperature of the freezer will be lower than the setting of the temperature. If you don't need the ice making function, please press the button of on ice. Okay. So if the ice maker is turned off, it doesn't make it the priority of getting it. Okay. So one of the other things that you have all the time is that the ice bucket could be overflowing. Okay. My dad has one of the Samsung refrigerators, and he's never had problems with the ice bucket overflowing. He has the other problem of he goes through too much ice, especially whenever I'm there or some of my brothers or sisters or their family are there. So we go through a lot of ice. Like I said, the U.S. is the number one place that uses the most ice. As a matter of fact, if you go to Europe, a lot of the times you don't even get ice. Okay. So let's say that I have the ice frozen in the bucket or it's overflowing. Okay. Here's some of the issues that you could have with this. Okay. The ice tray could not be releasing the cubes properly. Okay. This is especially common with the flex tray ice makers. As the flex tray ice maker gets older, there's a coating that's put on these ice makers from the factory. You cannot duplicate this coating. You can't spray a little oil on it. You can't spray Pam on it. Once again, you're going to get a funny taste in the ice, and if you do, it's not going to work. So you have to replace the ice cube tray. Okay. If something happens to the water pressure from the home is low, I'm going to have to adjust it up. If it's too high, I have to adjust it down. You're going to have to. Those are all problems that you need to be able to check on your incoming water supply to see what kind of pressures I have. Okay. One of the other things is the ice maker water valve inlet could be defective. Okay. Last thing to check is the ice maker defective? So I'm gonna go through and I'm gonna test. I mean, if it's me, first thing I'm gonna check is to see if I get ice. I mean, if I get water. If I don't get water, then that means I have to pull the refrigerator out. So I have to be very careful whenever I pull the refrigerator out because I have experienced there are not as many in this country as there were. They've finally gotten away from using a plastic water line. Okay. Plastic is not a water line that you want to have. If you find one, you tell the customer, ma'am, you probably want to replace this supply line. I have gone in whenever a customer had one of these and it was old, and the problem is whenever you have this little plastic water line, the heating and cooling from the compressor actually will aid to the destruction of this water line, and it will become brittle and it can blow right off as a problem. And then you're the last person that touched it, so you're responsible for it. So you need to make sure that you let the customer know, hey, it's okay for this second, but at any time this thing could pop off and you could have a flood. Okay, so if I have to get back to the water valve, I'm going to make sure that I check everything. Whenever I put it back in, I'm going to make sure that there is no leak, that I get no leak. The one thing that you never want to see is that there was a leak and you didn't see it, and now you have to pay for flooring. Okay. So here's one of the other things. I have the unit has ice on the evaporator and it's not defrosting. Okay. What are some of the issues that I would have if I had ice on the evaporator and it's not defrosting? If it's me, the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the frost thermostat. Okay. I'm going to go to the frost heater, all of that whenever I have that removed. Okay. So, but let's start from the top. I could have a defective control board. The defrost timer might be defective. The defrost heater could be bad. The defrost sensor could be bad. The defrost thermostat could be bad. Okay, the main control board might be your problem. You just want to make sure that you go down your set of checks and balances and get to each one of them. Okay, so I can do certain things from the front of the unit. Okay, if I have a bad control board, if I have a bad defrost timer, if I have a bad main control board, those are all from the back. I can't do anything but pull the refrigerator. But if I've got to pull the refrigerator, I want to check the other things that are more prevalent usually, which is the defrost heater assembly, the defrost sensor, the defrost thermostat. Those are all things that I can check from the front of the unit. Okay. Sorry, I'm wheezing a little bit today. My asthma again. So I can check all of that from the front. So I want to make sure that I can check everything that I can from the front before I go to the back and have to work from the back. Okay. I can't tell you how many times I have gone into a home and found that the defrost drain was clogged. Okay. There are times whenever the defrost drain is no fault of the customer with it being clogged. But probably 8 out of 10 times, that's not the case. 8 out of 10 times, it's because there's something that has gotten into the drain itself. It could be something from a pea to a piece of corn to one of the tags where you scan. Has a little sticker on it. It could be little pieces of paper, pieces of plastic. That's what I found in the drains. So I have to go through and I have to clean the drain. This is one of the things that you want to make sure that you have the proper equipment. Okay. Number one, please do not use a hair dryer. Okay. A hair dryer is the worst thing you can possibly use. I carried a steamer. Along with the steamer, I carried myself about 5 or 6 towels so that I could catch the water. Once again, I've got to make sure that I'm keeping myself safe, and I'm also making sure that I'm taking care of the customer's property. So I'm gonna if it's the drain is clogged, I'm gonna clean it the best that I can. Some of the times you can actually I always carry a knife. I could stick my knife in and get pieces of the ice to pop up, but you have to be very careful with that because you can poke a hole in it. That's very thin metal. That's something that you would do whenever you become more experienced. You don't want to do that if you're a brand new. Go ahead and use the steamer and clean everything out. Okay. As we get the defrost drain clean, I'll find my piece of whatever it is that has fallen into the drain, and I know that I'm working properly. If I don't find anything, it could be that it's going back into a freeze too early. So what can I do? If I have a set either a number 10 or number 6, 10, 12 gauge wire, I can take about 2 or 3 feet, it depends on how far the drain is. Okay. What I want to do is insert this piece of copper wire into the drain tube about 1 inch to 1.5 inches. Okay. What I'm doing, and I'm going to wrap that around, if I have a cow rod heater, I'm going to wrap that around that cow rod heater. And I can then use that cow rod heater will transfer the heat from there into the drain portion. it keeps it excuse me, it keeps it so that it doesn't start to freeze up in the drain as long. There was actually Whirlpool had an issue, and so did GE. That they actually furnished that for you many years ago. Okay, so the drain heater might be defective. The actually the heater could be defective. So I've got to check all of this. All of that before I do it. The drain strap, if it has a strap, it may have come out and not been in place. I want to make sure that I reroute it or make sure that it's in place. If I have a heater issue, that's going to be a big problem. Okay. Ice buildup in the refrigerator fan section. Okay. So this is what it looks like whenever I have removed the refrigerator section of this. This has a dual cooling system. Excuse me. So whenever I'm going to remove all this, I have to be very careful. I used to have my technicians actually keep a stock of this, because as I'm pulling this off and getting it from the back side, if I have the same problem that we were talking about, I will have pieces of this foam rubber pull off and let air get back in the back, and I can cause my issue. So I always had my technicians keep a little extra foam rubber. You can just use regular foam rubber. It doesn't have to be what came from the refrigerator. You can tell these are usually about ½ inch. I apologize whenever I did that one, it didn't go out right. Okay. So, but you can see the foam rubber there on the right, on the left side, as it goes up at the very top, goes all the way across the top, comes back down the other side, comes all the way back down, and this little piece of foam rubber is vital. Okay, so what happens? I need to remove this defrost mister. Okay, and if something happens and I keep getting this ice problem that you see over here on the right side, what I can do is I can actually adjust this defrost mister. Okay, it will get rid of. I want to do two things if I come and I find it, like this portion right here. Okay, the one that's on the right side. If you look at the very top, there's where the refrigerant line enters the back from the back side of the refrigerator. I'm going to put, I used to call it plumber's putty. I'm going to put some plumber's putty right there in and put that into place so that I do have no air leak that will come through. There was a bulletin out on a Samsung where it actually showed that there was an air leak in there, and they ask you to put that in, or you can actually even use a little foam liner, not foam liner, the stuff you put around the cracks in your house, the little spray foam. You can use that, but you have to be very careful. Once again, that expands, so you have to know what you're doing. Okay. The other thing is I can move this thermistor over, so that it causes it to stay cold longer. So I'm just going to adjust that thermistor. I can do that. Okay. I apologize because there's not really. This was a live presentation that I did, so it's a whole lot easier whenever we have a whole lot of people that are sitting in a class, and I can ask these questions and we spend time. As you can well tell, this is not me because I have no wedding ring. But so there are 3 areas that I can check, and I can use this foam, either this spray foam or excuse me, or I can use some plumber's putty around it to seal. The only thing I'm doing is sealing, making sure that I've got no air leaks that's coming through. Okay. That's all I'm doing. These are the 3 areas that I want to check and see if and if I think that I have an issue, I go ahead and take care of it there, and I don't have to come back again. Okay. Now, here's your cow rod heater that I was talking about. As you can tell, this one is bent down a little bit. You can see the drain behind it. If something happens and it's not, and I'm getting ice into the drain area, this is where I would take and wrap a little piece of wire, and it's wire. You can't be insulated. And I'm going to just put a little, like I said, about maybe an inch, half an inch into the drain. Okay. So the freezer section, let's talk about, we've gone from the refrigerator section. Now we're at the freezer section. So the freezer section is cold, but the refrigerator section is warm. So in a generalization, okay, in a generalization, your evaporator coils are frosted up. The temperature control board is faulty. This is what could be wrong. Okay, the evaporator fan motor is not working. The thermistor might be defective. The damper control assembly is not open properly, and the defrost control board is defective. On one of the older units, the damper control assembly plays a huge portion of this. If you don't have the damper control set properly, you'll either get the freezer too warm, the refrigerator too warm, or the refrigerator too warm, or the refrigerator too cold. As we've gone away from this damper control assembly that it used to be, I still have in my home in Daytona Beach, I have one of the old Frigidairs that actually has the defrost system that I can actually take a flat-headed screwdriver, or usually I just stick my finger all the way up and twist it, and that's how I advance it into a defrost. Everything today works off of a control board, so you can't really do that. But the damper control assembly on the refrigerator that I have in my house in Daytona is huge. Okay, if something happens and somebody comes along and monkeys with it, because everybody thinks, oh, I got to put this as cold as I can get it. Yeah, well, then you freeze your eggs, you freeze your milk. If it's anything sitting next to where the damper is, you actually freeze anything that's next to it. So you have to be very careful with this, right? So it could have a defective defrost thermostat. The defrost timer could not be working properly, and the main control board could be defective. So I want to make sure that I go through and I check each one of these to make sure that I have the right problem. Okay. Like I said, 99 times out of 100, you don't have a compressor problem. Okay. Well, maybe it's 9 out of 10. Okay. Food in the refrigerator section is freezing. This all gets back to what I was talking about. Okay. The temperature control thermostat's not working properly. A thermostat may be defective, the one that shuts the unit on and off. The control board could be defective, except it's not. The control board, you're going to have to, at this point, to check all of this out, I'm probably going to have to pull the refrigerator out, take the screws out from around the backside on this unit, take the screws out, and then I can go in and I can check voltage going in. You have to be sure that I am checking DC to DC, AC to AC. 9 times out of 10, unless we're talking about the power that comes into that board, you're looking at DC voltage. You're not looking at AC voltage. How do I tell if it's AC or DC? Is a quick scan. I mean, what I do is I look for the size of the wire. If I have a really, really skinny, thin wire, that's usually an indication that I have a DC issue. It's a DC issue. It's a DC wire. If I have a thicker wire, like you have one that goes to the compressor, I know that that's an AC, okay, not a DC. So the gauge of the wire can throw right out there. Okay, so I'm going to go to the back. I'm going to check all of my thermistors. Okay, I'm going to check my control board, making sure that I have power coming in proper, and then my power going out to each one of the items listed is good. I can check my defrost control. I can check my temperature control. I can check my damper assembly. Okay, I can check all of those from the back on the board. I have to do so. I have to make sure that I'm checking through those. Okay. Okay. Here's one. It's a good one. The light in the refrigerator is not working. Okay. Usually, if I have a light in the refrigerator, I have one or two issues. Okay. My light bulb itself, which today almost every single manufacturer out there has gone to an LED light. Everybody is going to LED because it uses less energy. Okay, I could have a bad LED light. I could have a bad door switch. The light socket, unless you're talking about an older unit, probably is not your problem. Usually with an LED, it's just a plug and play. So I would disconnect it. I would check my voltage, go into my light. If I have the voltage and my light doesn't work, it means I have the bad strip of light there. If I don't have it, then I've got to pull the unit and go around to the back and check and see where my defective portion is. Okay, the light board itself could be bad. It could be that the board itself is not any good. Usually that's not it. Usually it's the light. The light itself is bad. The LED light is bad. But like I said, it could be that there's a bad connection between the two, between the LED assembly and where it plugs in. You got to make sure that that's good. I have had guys that had to zip tie it back together so that it stayed together. What you don't want to do is you don't want to take and cut the wires and splice them together. Don't do that. You'll create more problems for yourself. Okay. My unit runs constantly. This used to be one of the main things that we used to get calls at in the summer. Oh, my condenser, it's running all the time. I can't figure out what it is. Okay. Basically what I would do is if it's this unit right here, I can pop in the front and look and see if my condensing coils are dirty. That's my problem. That's probably what it is. Then I can check, like I said, I can check my temperatures. Okay. I see whether the customer has the unit set. I can go in and look and see where it could have been that the kids have had the door open too long. Okay. That's really bad. In the summertime, you see a whole lot more of it. Okay. Could be that the temperature, if my temperature is above 10 degrees, I need to go do a whole lot more checks to see why it is that high. Okay. We're talking about this is running constantly. Okay. Could be my evaporator fan motor is not operating properly. I'm going to check that. My defrost control, I got to check and make sure that those are working properly. My timer could be incorrect, and otherwise the main control board could be bad. One of the other things that people don't realize until they get there, the door gasket. Okay, the outside door gasket may be letting warm, moist air in, and that could be part of your problem. So you want to make sure that you check and make sure that the door gasket is functioning properly. Okay. Okay. Here is a fix that I had one of my technicians show me. If the fan blader is slipping on the condenser fan motor, how do I fix it? This is more of a order the part, but I've got to get it so the customer's up and running till I can get back. Okay, so I can use a pair of needle nose pliers, grasp the condenser fan motor shaft, take a flat-headed screwdriver, place it between the front side of the pliers and the back side of the fan blade, and pry it off using constant pressure to remove it. Take a spring and install it closer to the back side of the to the fan blade. So there's a little pinch. There's a little pinch thing. What I can do is I can remove that. I can squeeze it really tight in with my pliers, put that back on the shaft, push that shaft back on. I have seen that if the assembly comes in one, like fan blade and fan motor together, I have seen guys drop a piece of super glue, a couple of drops of super glue in it, and super glue it until they can get back. Don't please use this as a temporary, because if you don't, you're going to come back in the next month, guaranteed, because that's going to wear off and it's going to start slipping again. But it's something that you can use to get yourself through and keep the customer happy and up and running. You get back, you change the part out, the customer's happy. Oh, you didn't really need to replace that. And then whenever you take it out, you show her, well, ma'am, here's what I had to do. And this is a temporary fix, and I knew that it wouldn't last, but I wanted to make sure that you were up and running, because most of the time you have kids on the house, and the last thing you need is not to have a refrigerator. Okay, we're going to talk about error codes. Okay, so my sensors. Here's my error code. L1 is my freezer temperature. L2 is the refrigerator sensor. L4, defrost sensor. Okay, you're probably going to find L4, L5, could be an L6, an F, I'm sorry. An F6 is the ambient temperature in the room. That all depends on how warm the house is, okay? F8 is the ice maker. That's going to tell the customer that they have a problem. F13, humidity sensor. Again, these are the ones that you're going to see the most of. Ice maker room temperature sensor error, F15. Okay, F16, a humidity sensor. Okay, so this is all stuff that you can refer back on the Encompass website, and this would tell you the readings, okay, of what you should see. So you notice that each of these sensors, okay, at 32 degrees Fahrenheit, the ohms should read somewhere around 13,290 ohms. Okay, so here we go right here. We're talking about, L21, that's my freezer evaporator fan motor. L22, my refrigerator evaporator fan motor. L23 is my condenser fan motor. Okay, if you look on the right side, it tells you exactly what it is. Okay, if I have an L39, I have an ice maker problem. Okay. This one has an ice maker heater. As the tube goes into the refrigerator, if that's not working properly, it'll throw an L33 code. Okay. Once again, these are all of the error codes. Okay, for this unit, you can keep going through all of these. They will be on the Encompass website for you to peruse. Okay. So let's talk about setting the desired temperature. Okay. I'm going to tap any button, plus or minus, to wake the display up. This step may not apply to some of the models. Okay. Tap the section in the fridge, freezer, or any other function. The select compartment indicator or function blinks. Okay. Tap the up or the down arrow. Okay. Once I tap the up or down, I'm going to refer to the table for available selection for each compartment and function. Wait 5 seconds or tap the 0 to confirm your selection. Okay. After you confirm your selection, you can tap 0 again within 5 seconds. You can change the setting again from the previously changed item. After you confirm your selection, you tap 0. After 5 seconds, you can change the function from the first item. Okay. Each time you press the button, the control panel, you'll hear a short beep. Okay. There's a small little test. You guys, like I said, I can't give this to you, but I'm going to go through and I want you to look at these. Okay. And I want you in your mind to think about what happens. Okay. With the railing in the freezer pulled out, what happens? Simple, A or B. Will the fan still run or will it not run? Okay. The correct answer is the fan won't run if the railing is pulled out. There's a switch in the back that we just talked about. Okay. What does the L5 code mean? This is the one that we had just seen, and I'm going to cheat. Well, maybe. Well, this doesn't want to work, so. Okay. The evaporator fan runs on what? 120 volts? What does the evaporator fan run on? Remember that we had said that that's a small wire. Okay. Does it run on 120 volts? Do we have goes under 12 volts AC, or does it have or is it 12 volts DC? Okay, the right answer is DC. C. Okay, the ice maker produces blank cubes per cycle, which transfers to blank cubes in a 24-hour period. Okay, 8 cubes per cycle is between 100 to 130. Could be 8 cubes transfers to 3 to 5 pounds, or 6 cubes, and it could be 120 pounds. Okay. On this unit, the answer is 8. 8. Okay. And it only produces between 100 to 130 cubes per day. Okay. Gets back to what I said. The compressor, a compressor is like a kidney, B like a heart, or C like a stomach. The correct answer is B like a heart. Okay. The best way for preventing floor damage is cardboard, towel, slider, or air sled. Of course, the answer there is C, the slider or air sled. Okay. To remove the door for the access to the freezer, you must first remove the top shelf, the door, and you don't need to remove the door. Okay. The first thing you have to do is remove the top shelf. Okay. Out of the 3 answers below, which one is not correct for a not cooling refrigerator? A dirty condenser, a broken, a frozen evaporator, or a broken ice maker? The answer is C, broken ice maker. Okay. The main components to the compressor are the start relay, the overload, the resistor, or it could be A and B. Notice that there's no A and B here. So the first one is the start relay and the second one is the overload, which the answer is A and B. Okay. And then of course, the fault code L94, we didn't really go through that. It's the water tank supply level is open or shorted. Okay. So here's your answers. Once again, you've got all of these. Does anybody have any questions